Happy New Year to all the viewers, to all the people of our great nation. We are starting a new year with new hopes and ambition. We are also going to celebrate the 75th year of our independence. As you are aware, many fought and sacrificed their lives for freedom of our nation. We need to pay homage and respect to each one of them, for whom we are free and we are independent in today's India. I will give you a little background of the independence movement before we start talking about the future and how India would progress in 21st century. See, the battle for India's freedom started way back in 1857 with the Sepoy uprising of Mangal Pandey. Then there were so many other revolutionaries like Shahid Bhagat Singh, Khudiram Bose, Rajguru, Binoy Badol Dinesh, who did not hesitate to sacrifice their lives so that India could be free. Then we had Mahatma Gandhi's non-violent movement. Mahatma Gandhi converted an elite Congress into a mass movement. But we must also understand that through non-violence, it was practically impossible to drive out the might of the British power, the British imperialist power. Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose, who was very much part of the Congress movement, as you know, in 1921, he returned from England after resigning from a very comfortable job that he had obtained, the Indian Civil Service. He resigned from the ICS and plunged into the freedom movement of our country. Subhash Bose had said that he could not serve two masters. He could only serve one master, and his master was Bharat Mata. His master was India. Therefore, when he wrote to my grandfather, his elder brother Sarat Chandra Bose, and also his father, my great-grandfather Janakinath Bose, he had stated the reasons for his resignation. He had clearly stated that I cannot serve the British Empire and at the same time be loyal towards my nation. I have decided to be more loyal towards my Bharat Mata, my nation, and therefore I am resigning from the ICS, which was a British imperialist position. So he had quit and he came back to India. He met Mahatma Gandhi in Mumbai, and Mahatma Gandhi advised him to go to Kolkata and join with Deshbandhu Chittaranjan Das, another luminary, a stalwart of the Indian freedom movement. So here was Subhash Chandra Bose, who joined the Congress, who became the president of the Indian National Congress in 1938 at Haripura. Then again in 1939, he was elected Congress president for a second consecutive term, defeating Mahatma Gandhi's candidate, Pattabi Sitaramaiah, at the Tripuri Congress. But Subhash Bose realized that India cannot be free unless there is an armed movement, there is an armed revolution and struggle. British forces would not vacate India unless they are compelled to. And this could not have been achieved through a non-violent process. or through a non-violent struggle. So Subhash Bose resigning from the Congress presidentship, there were varied reasons. Yes, he had differences of opinion with Mahatma Gandhi and Nehru, with Sardar Patel, Sarojini Naidu, but that was not the only reason. The seminal reason for Subhash Bose to leave the Congress, to resign from the presidentship, was because he realized that we cannot attain freedom through the Congress methodology. We cannot attain freedom through a non-violent struggle. Therefore, he left and he went abroad, and as you know, he enhanced the Azad Hind Fauj. See, Subhash Chandra Bose did not form the Azad Hind Fauj. Azad Hind Fauj was established by another hero who was Rash Bihari Bose, along with Captain Mohan Singh. They had formed the Azad Hind Fauj with the help of POWs in Southeast Asia. Subhash Chandra Bose enhanced it and made it a 60,000 force, disciplined, fully trained with arms and ammunition. So that was the contribution of Subhash Bose. Then, as you are aware, he led this 60,000 strong army from Myanmar. Those days it used to be known as Burma, from Burma to the Imphal border. We recall that famous tune. That tune we really appreciate, that the Indian Army, when the cadets of the Indian Army, they pass out, their marching tune is this tune that the Azad Hind Fauj soldiers marched with. Kadam kadam badhaye ja, khushi ke geet gaye ja, ye zindagi hai qaum ki, ye qaum pe lutaye ja. This was the song which encouraged and gave enthusiasm to the 60,000 strong Azad Hind Fauj soldiers who attacked Imphal. Do you know, this piece of history has been suppressed. We are celebrating the 75th year of our independence. We must really know the contribution of each and every person, the contribution of Azad Hind Fauj, the contribution of Colonel Shaukat Ali Malik of the Azad Hind Fauj, who defeated the British Army on Indian soil for the first time. That was in Moirang. As you know, Moirang is in the state of Manipur. He drove out the British from Manipur and hoisted the Indian national flag at Moirang on this historic date, 14th of April, 1944. That was the true Independence Day of India. For 3 months, Azad Hind government was in charge of Moirang and half of Nagaland. This is true independence. You see, independence for a single day is independence. And that was independence of united, undivided India. As you know, on the 15th of August, 1947, we did not get independence of undivided India, united India, and we did not get Purna Swaraj. You see, the entire Congress movement, Bhagat Singh, Khudiram Bose, Rajguru's sacrifice was for Purna Swaraj. Purna Swaraj for not dominion status. It is very unfortunate that on the 15th of August, India was divided. India only got dominion status. This was not the fight for freedom for each and every hero of our country who sacrificed everything for united India. But unfortunately, it was dominion status. If Subhash Bose would have returned to India, he would have never accepted dominion status. He would have never seen that India is partitioned. India got partitioned. We created a jihadi state, Pakistan. This would not have happened. But anyway, we cannot change history. But going back to 1944, If Subhash Bose had the opportunity, India would have attained complete independence, undivided independence in 1944 itself. But as you know, the INA had to retreat. The INA was given instructions by Subhash Chandra Bose that after hoisting the flag at Moirang, after establishing the government of the Azad Hind Fauj and Azad Hind government in Moirang, Colonel Shaukat Ali Malik was asked to march on to Delhi. That is the slogan that Subhash Bose had given, Chalo Delhi. He had said, you must go to the Red Fort in Delhi and hoist the tricolour in 1944 itself. But as you know, the Japanese Imperial Army was giving the support to Azad Hind Fauj to continue the battle, although the Japanese army did not come to Moirang. It was only Azad Hind Fauj who came. But food supplies, arms and ammunition supply, these things were being facilitated by the Japanese Imperial Army. Now, because of Hiroshima, Nagasaki, because of inclement weather in the northeast, the Japanese Imperial Army had surrendered. They had to retreat. But till today, a wrong history has been preached that the Azad Hind Fauj and Subhash Chandra Bose surrendered. That is not true. Subhash Bose and Azad Hind Fauj till today have not surrendered. That is the correct history. So now, why did the INA retreat? Do you know at that time, the Congress leadership who was sitting in Delhi, if they would have fully supported the efforts of the Azad Hind government and Azad Hind Fauj, then Azad Hind Fauj could have marched right up to Red Fort in Delhi and hoisted the flag. But the treachery that was done by the Congress leadership, you know I don't want to mention any specific names, but they joined hands with the British forces. They joined hands with the British government and fought against the Azad Hind Fauj, Azad Hind government and Subhash Chandra Bose. This, I feel, that they had betrayed the nation. They had betrayed the people who sacrificed for the nation for freedom. They had betrayed. This history should also be told. Now, why did Britain relinquish India? Why did Britain leave India in a hurry? As you know, the Second World War was won by the Allied powers, America, Britain, and others who were part of the Allied force. They actually won the war, and the Axis powers were defeated. Azad Hind Fauj was with the Axis powers. Now, if you win the war, you don't leave your empire. But Britain decided to leave, give dominion status, partition the country, create animosity, disturbance in the region permanently. Their evil design could not be understood by the Congress leadership. They were also in a hurry to get dominion status and partition the country. This should have been vehemently fought. We should have obtained undivided, united India's independence. We should have ensured that we get complete independence and not dominion status. But anyway, that is what happened. Now, if you look into the documents, we have been able to obtain certain documents from the British archives. I must mention the gentleman who did extremely good work. One, Dr. Kalyan De. He is no more, unfortunately. He passed away about a year back. Dr. Kalyan De went to the British archives, invested his own, funds and did a lot of research. He has written a book which I think is a very definitive book, which the youth of our country, students of Indian history, people who want to know about the freedom movement must read. It is known, the book's heading is the liberator of the Indian subcontinent. It is available, I think, on Amazon. I have a few copies. In fact, I had the privilege of meeting Dr. Kalyan Dev when he had come to Kolkata. And I interacted with him and he presented me a few copies of his books. And this book clearly puts forward the critical documents of the British archives, where he has put documents in his book. There is a letter that is written by Field Marshal Auchinleck. He was the person in charge of the Indian Army, British Indian Army, during the Second World War. He clearly writes to his superior, the Viceroy at that time. That time there was Viceroy Wavell. He has written a secret letter to him saying that the British armed forces, you see, you must understand, the British Army in those days consisted of around 12 lakh officers and soldiers. Out of 12 lakh officers and soldiers, there were only 40,000 Britishers, 40,000 actual British officers and soldiers, and the rest were Bharatiyas, the rest were Indians. Now, they lost confidence on the Bharatiya and Indian soldiers. Now, as you know, if the Indian soldiers revolted, they could just finish off the 40,000 actual British soldiers in a few days. So they realized that because of the Azad Hind Fauj, because of the INA trials, which were held, as you know, at the Red Fort in early 1946, you know, 3 officers of the Indian National Army, of the Azad Hind Fauj, were tried for high treason against the British Empire. The 3 officers were Shah Nawaz Khan, a Muslim, Gurbakh Singh Dhillon, a Sikh, and Prem Kumar Saigal, a Hindu. So those days, you know, when the revolt had started in the British armed forces, there used to be a saying going around that Lal Kille se aaya awaaz, Dhillon, Saigal, or Shah Nawaz. With this, you know, rhyme, the British forces completely, they were so nervous because what happened, you know, right from Karachi to Mumbai, to Kolkata, Delhi, people came out on the streets with Subhash Chandra Bose's photograph and the slogan, Jai Hind, and they all revolted against the British forces. Britain that time realized that they cannot suppress or hold down this movement. You know, Jallianwala Bagh movement was also a great movement, but then Jallianwala Bagh movement was not of this scale, of this magnitude, and they were all shot dead. You know, what a, you know, kind of attack that the British launched on the, you know, Jallianwala Bagh martyrs. They were just killed. But here, right across the country, the British Indian forces revolted. Ordinary people came on the road and revolted. So Britain realized we have to leave. Then, apart from this secret document that we have been able to obtain, the letter of Field Marshal Auchinleck, there is another very, very, you know, seminal document. That document is Lord Clement Attlee. You know, Lord Clement Attlee was the British Prime Minister during the transfer of power in 1947. Lord Attlee had come to our city, Kolkata, and he was staying at the Raj Bhavan. In those days, in 1956, the acting governor of Bengal was Justice Fani Bhushan Chakravarti. Justice Fani Bhushan Chakravarti was also the Chief Justice of the Calcutta High Court. Now, Justice Chakravarti, in the evening, when they sat for dinner, asked Lord Clement Attlee that, Lord Attlee, what made you leave India? Was it Mahatma Gandhi's Quit India movement, the non-violent struggle, starting from the Salt Satyagraha to the Quit India movement in 1942? Or was it something else? Because I fail to understand what was the hurry to leave India in 47 when you actually won the Second World War. You won the Second World War. There's no reason for you to leave India. So, Justice Chakravarti's question, see, Lord Clement Attlee used to smoke a pipe. So he was holding on to his pipe, and then gradually he answered. He said, Gandhiji is non-violent, with due respects to Mahatma Gandhi. Mahatma Gandhi is the father of the nation. It was Subhash Chandra Bose who addressed Mahatma Gandhi as the father of the nation from Southeast Asia when he was leading the Azad Hind Fauj. So we have all respect for Mahatma Gandhi, but we cannot give credit to a person for which if he doesn't deserve that credit. A lot of other contribution is there. But as far as freedom is concerned, Lord Clement Attlee stated that Gandhiji's movement had MINIMAL effects. Gandhiji's non-violent movement, Quit India movement, had minimal effects. By 1944, the Quit India movement was completely crushed, and most of the Congress leaders were put in jail. It was only the Azad Hind Fauj which was fighting in 1944-45. You must also appreciate that. Because 42, the Quit India movement started. By late 43, early 44, it was completely over. So what was the idea of Britain leaving India in 47? So then Lord Attlee replied. Softly he replied. He said, the battle of the Azad Hind Fauj. He, of course, was a Britisher. So he said the battle of the Indian National Army and the subsequent INA trials, which were held at the Red Fort in Delhi, completely destroyed the loyalty and allegiance of the British armed forces to the British High Command. This was the only reason why we had to leave India in 1947. So this comes from the then Prime Minister of Great Britain, who actually signed the transfer of power documents. We don't need any more evidence. But there is a third seminal evidence which I must put forward. My father, Amionath Bose, was a barrister at law. He was a member of parliament, Lok Sabha. In fact, he had defeated Sachin Chaudhary, who was the finance minister in Indira Gandhi's cabinet. From Arambagh constituency, with a huge margin, he defeated the finance minister of India and went to Lok Sabha. He was also former ambassador to Myanmar, where Subhash Bose's activity was concentrated, of the Azad Hind Fauj. So when he went to England in 1976, he sought for an appointment with the last Viceroy of India, Lord Louis Mountbatten. Lord Louis Mountbatten was not too well in 76, but he granted an appointment to my father. As you know, 1979, Lord Mountbatten was killed by an IRA bomb blast in the UK, as you know. But in 76, my father had an opportunity to interact with the last Viceroy of India. And my father told that I would ask a few questions. Now, during the discussion, the Lord Mountbatten's assistant said that, see, Lord Mountbatten is not too well. He gets very tired if for long discussions. So Mr. Bose kindly asked one or two questions. So my father said that I will only ask him one question. And that's all. I don't want to disturb him further. So my father remembered the chat that Justice Fanibhushan Chakravarti had, had with Lord Clement Attlee. And he wanted to ask the same question to Mountbatten. In fact, Phanibhushan Chakravarti has documented this discussion he had with the then British Prime Minister. So my father met, this was, I think, in November 1976. My father had the privilege to meet the last Viceroy of India, Lord Louis Mountbatten, and he posed the same question to him, that, Lord Mountbatten, what made you leave India in a hurry? Because after all, you won the Second World War. The Mountbatten replied, very specific reply. Subhash Chandra Bose, your uncle, and his Indian National Army. That is why we had to leave your country. Then, of course, they had tea, snacks. So we don't need any further documentation or proof. Sufficient proof is there. We respect all, each and every revolutionary, starting from 1857. We respect Mahatma Gandhi's non-violent Quit India movement. We respect every person who has contributed in their own way for the freedom of our nation. We are now going to celebrate the 75th year. But we must realize that the final war for independence was the battle of the Indian National Army. And Subhash Bose had realized, you see, Subhash Bose had studied international warfare, guerrilla warfare. He was a very, he used to read a lot. And my father, Amyanath Bose, and his uncle Subhash shared the same bedroom for a period of 6 years. So that is how, you see, my knowledge of Subhash Chandra Bose is not based on any books, but based on actual experience that my father had with his uncle. So I see Subhash through the eyes of my father, Amyanath Bose, who was committed to his uncle, who was completely devoted and followed the inclusive ideology of his uncle Subhash Bose. And that's how I have also got influenced and inspired by these two great men in our family, in my life, Subhash Chandra Bose, my great uncle, and my father, Amyanath Bose. So now, India is a nation, is a great nation, we must realize. Today, I would request the youth of our nation that if you want to really understand India, you must appreciate the rich heritage and culture of our nation, the history of our nation. You see, no nation can prosper if it loses its thread of its history, heritage, and culture. So we must, in fact, during one of my discussions with the Honorable Prime Minister, Narendra Modi ji, I had told him that, don't you agree that if we cannot tell the true history, heritage, and culture of our nation to the next generation, how would they continue to take India forward? And Narendra Modi ji agreed and clearly told me that the NDA government would take all steps, would take the initiative to write the true history of India's freedom struggle. I must say that the court historians, that historians affiliated to certain political parties have distorted history. We have not been able to give the true history of our freedom struggle to our youth of our nation. So the time has come to, I won't say rewrite, we should correct the distortions that are there in our history. NCERT, Book Trust of India, they are in charge of documentation and writing and publishing books for schools and colleges. They must take the responsibility of seeing and ensuring that the true history is presented. You see, if you want to understand Subhash Chandra Bose, there are many books which have been written on Subhash Bose and the Indian National Army. But two of the books that Subhash Bose himself has written, his unfinished biography, autobiography, must be read by all students who admire Subhash Bose. One is The Indian Pilgrim. We are trying, I have already requested the Government of India, the Ministry of Culture, that these books must be republished, reprinted, and made compulsory reference textbooks in schools and colleges. One is The Indian Pilgrim. Number two is The Indian Struggle, both written by Subhash Chandra Bose. These books have to be read. And the other books that you want to know about the Azad Hind Fauj and the Indian National Army, you must read The Springing Tiger. You see, unfortunately, books on the Indian National Army and the war of the Indian National Army, the battles, it was known that the INA lost the battle but won the war. Now, these are all told by British historians. It is not told by any Indian historians. The British actually appreciated Subhash Bose's struggle. If you see Hugh Toy was the British intelligence officer. Hugh Toy wrote a book, The Springing Tiger. This is a fantastic book to understand the battle of the Azad Hind Fauj, how they progressed, what kind of guerrilla warfare and tactics they adopted in the Indian and Imphal border. So Hugh Toy, Springing Tiger. And the other thing is Michael Edwards. Michael Edwards, another British historian, wrote a very good book. In fact, The Last Days of British India. This book is again a very important book for students to understand the Indian freedom movement. And then Ramesh Chandra Mazumdar. He was a brilliant professor. He wrote the history of our freedom movement. There are 3 volumes of Ramesh Chandra Mazumdar. Mr. Nehru, when he was the Prime Minister of India, he had actually banned these books. These books were not available. Now, these books should be again reprinted and published. Books are available now, but not openly, not everywhere. So, you must read Ramesh Chandra Majumdar's book on the Indian history. And the other thing that has to be read, which is a classified document still, you see, the Narendra Modi NDA government, they did a very good job of declassification. For many, many years, there was a movement that all files pertaining to Subhash Chandra Bose must be declassified, must be put on the public domain. But no one bothered. Successive governments, both Congress and otherwise, they did not really pay heed. It was only on 23rd January 2016, the NDA government, under the leadership of Narendra Modi ji, released and declassified documents pertaining to Subhash Chandra Bose and the Indian National Army. And a book which is still classified, Professor Pratul Chandra Gupta. He was a historian who wrote the military history of the Indian National Army. That history book, when he published, Mr. Nehru suppressed that document, did not allow that to be released openly. Pratul Chandra Gupta secretly had published that book, but all the books were seized and the document is there with the Defense Archives. I have requested the Government of India that book should be published and brought to the public domain. There you would learn what is the contribution of the Indian National Army. Now, when we are celebrating the 75th year of independence, we are also celebrating the 125th year of the birth anniversary of Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose, who was the liberator of India. Subhash Bose was not only the liberator of India, he was known as the hero of Asia, because Subhash Bose's activities, his influence, his inspiration went much beyond the shores of India. Subhash Bose inspired all nations in Asia and Southeast Asia, who were fighting for their freedom against the British. So here was a man who was not only the liberator of our nation, he was the hero and liberator of all nations who were fighting against the British in Asia. Mamoru Shigemitsu, he was the foreign minister of Japan during the Second World War and even afterwards. He also became the deputy prime minister of Japan. My father had the privilege to correspond with Mamoru Shigemitsu. This was in 1956, when my father was planning to visit Tokyo, visit Japan in 57. He wanted to meet Mamoru Shigemitsu. So he wrote a letter to him, asking him that if I come to Japan, would I be able to meet you? Those days, if you are close to someone or if you want to be very warm to a person, you would write a handwritten letter. See, today, everything is typed. You send the email, it's all on the computer. Very few people write by hand. But even Mamoru Shigemitsu, who was the deputy prime minister of Japan and foreign minister, he wrote a letter handwritten to my father. And he wrote that I am honored to correspond with the nephew of the hero of Asia, Subhash Chandra Bose. So this was Subhash Bose's stature in Asia. Mamoru Shigemitsu used to address Netaji as the hero of Asia. So we must understand Subhash Chandra Bose. You see, today there is a demand that we must build a statue of Netaji in the Rajpath in Delhi. It is appreciated. We must have a museum on Subhash Chandra Bose's life and times in Kolkata, in Delhi. But I look at it a little differently. The personality, the gigantic personality of Subhash Chandra Bose, the contribution that he made for the freedom of our nation, and the influence that he extended to all nations in Asia who were fighting the British, cannot be kept within the four walls of a museum. Subhash Chandra Bose cannot be restricted to the four walls of a museum or just by building and unveiling a statue of Subhash Bose. This is no respect. This is no justice. This is no befitting tribute to Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose. So then what is the befitting tribute to Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose? You see, Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose was not only a freedom fighter, he was a visionary. He was a planner. He was an economist. He was a nation builder. In 1938, when Subhash Bose was the president of the Indian National Congress, he established the first planning committee of India. See, everybody was fighting for freedom of our country. Very few leaders of that era thought about the economy, thought about the welfare of the people of our nation, thought about the downtrodden, thought about the farmers, thought about the poor, thought about people who are alienated in society. So he was a man. As a mayor of Calcutta Municipal Corporation, do you know, he was a leader. He was a born leader, but he used to stand on the streets of Kolkata. How many leaders of today, of Subhash Bose's stature, would stand on the streets of Kolkata and look into the welfare of the slum dwellers of Kolkata city? He used to do that as the mayor of Kolkata. And therefore, he, in his planning committee, there is a very good analysis made of the planning committee formed by Subhash Bose in 1938. And he was such an inclusive leader that in spite of having difference of opinion with Mr. Nehru, he made Mr. Nehru the chairman of the planning committee. How inclusive he was. And he planned for India. What India after independence? how would India tackle the economy? We have fought wars for 200 years. Our economy would be in tatters, but we need to build it from the scratch. If you see, Madhu Dandavate has made an analysis. This is available on the internet. If you look at Madhu Dandavate, Netaji's planning committee, you will get a PDF file. Study what is said. What Netaji, how he wanted to have a nation building plan after independence. He had planned 100 years after independence what India should do. So here was a visionary. And the other thing that is so relevant in today's India, today, I will not go to any specifics because I'm talking about Independence Day, celebration of the 75th year of independence, celebration of 125th year of Netaji's birth anniversary. So I will not talk political, but then we are talking about a political subject. So we will have to, there would be an overlap. But we must realize why Subhash Bose, his ideology, his planning committee is so relevant in 21st century India. You see, in the Azad Hind Fauj, 60,000 soldiers were there. Can you tell me who these 60,000 soldiers were? In the Azad Hind Fauj, there was not a single Muslim. There was not a single Hindu. There was not a single Buddhist. There was not a single Sikh. And there was not a single Christian. Then who were these 60,000 people? Do you know? These 60,000 people, each and every one was a Bharatiya. Subhash Bose was the only leader of that era who could establish us as Indians. We were Indians first, and then we were Hindus, Muslims, Sikhs, or Christians. This is the message I would like to give to the nation, to the youth of our nation. Let us unite. India is a very diverse nation. We all talk about unity through diversity, but how many of us actually practice it? Subhash Bose practiced what he preached. He implemented in the Azad Hind Fauj the concept of being a Bharatiya. Today we all talk about the concept of Bharat, that unity is through diversity, but we don't bother to really implement this. Time has come where there is so much of divisiveness, where there is so many political parties who are encouraging divisive politics. Subhash Bose's gigantic personality, we must remember, and real tribute to the man would be to follow his ideology. Real tribute to the personality of Subhash Chandra Bose is to follow his ideology. Let us unite as a nation. Religion is very important. Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose was also a very spiritual person. He was also religious. He used to visit the Kali temple. He was a Kali Bhakt. Late at night, when he was under a lot of pressure, after coming back from the Congress working committee sessions, he used to go to Dakshineshwar Kali temple and pray through the night. He was a disciple of Ramakrishna Paramhans and Swami Vivekananda. He used to go to the Kali temple in Kalighat in Kolkata and pray through the night. Subhash Bose used to suffer from insomnia. He could not sleep comfortably at night. All these stories I've heard from my father, Amayanath Bose. And that is why he used to wake up my father at night and talk through the night about Mahatma Gandhi, Nehru, Sardar Patel, Sarojini Naidu, and various other Congress leaders, what their thinking process was, what they used to discuss in the Congress working committees. All these things he used to discuss. So as a spiritual person, he respected all religions, but he never brought religion into politics. Why did Subhash Chandra Bose stood out? How did he stand out as a leader? Because he refused to use religious symbols for political purposes. This is a message I would like to give to the political fraternity of our nation. I am also involved in politics, but I must also extend this thought of Subhash Bose to all my colleagues across political lines, across party lines, that Subhash had said, never mix up religion into politics. Religion is your personal matter. We respect all religions, but it should be taken away from politics. Politics is about the welfare of the people. Politics is about equality for all. Politics is about helping the people who are less privileged. That is what politics is all about. Politics is not about division. Politics is not about, being what happens is being appeasement. Today, what we find, a lot of political parties are doing appeasement politics. They are doing vote bank politics. Subhash Bose would have vehemently opposed this kind of politics in our country. He believed in an egalitarian society. He believed in equal opportunity for all. He believed equality for all. And the other thing that Subhash Bose stood for, when we are celebrating the 75th year of independence, let us remember what Subhash Bose practiced. He practiced what he did in the Azad Hind Fauj. Today we talk about women's empowerment, women's emancipation. Women should get equal rights. But even after 75 years, after independence, have we achieved it? But Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose, in such a short period, had achieved it. Rani of Jhansi Regiment. Rani of Jhansi Regiment was a women's regiment in the Azad Hind Fauj. Women had equal rights to fight along with the men for the freedom of our country. He gave equal status to women. And Lakshmi Swaminathan, later she became Lakshmi Saigal, was the commander of the Rani of Jhansi Regiment. So these are lessons that we need to learn about Subhash Chandra Bose's economic planning. We don't have much time to really delve into the planning committee that he had set up. But as I have said, there is a document available on the internet. You can obtain it. It is also available in Parliament House. You can get it from the office in the Parliament. If MPs and ministers, they want access to this, understand this man. Subhash Bose was the liberator of India, but he was not only a freedom fighter. He was much beyond a freedom fighter. He was a national planner. He was a political activist. He was a visionary. He was an economist. He had so many facets to his character. So this is a man that we need to understand. And today, India has achieved a lot. India has got nuclear power. We have been able to send satellites into space. Our medical profession, we have made advancements. But where we have failed to unite the nation. We have failed to unite all communities, which Subhash Chandra Bose had achieved. So friends, with these words, I wish you all the best. We are in a new year. We are in the year of celebration, celebrating 75th year of independence, celebrating the liberator of India, Subhash Chandra Bose's 125th birth anniversary. Let us think positive. We have fought a battle against COVID-19. We have won, and we would win. India would win. I feel 21st century is a century for India and Asia. Subhash Chandra Bose had said, he had attended the conference in Tokyo, a conference where all heads of states, including the Southeast Asian countries, had attended. So Subhash Bose had said that our actions, let it not only go down in the history as a maker of a new Asia, but let our actions go down in history as a maker of a new world. So I would like to end with this quote from the hero of Asia, from the liberator of India, Subhash Chandra Bose. Jai Hind, Namaskar.